Video links overview. This will be an overview of the video links program. We'll start with a short disclaimer. All images, references, and articles are included as illustrative examples only. ODNI and IARPA do not endorse any product or company referenced within, and changes may occur before the final BAA is released. In today's world, video sensors are ubiquitous. Aerial, building-mounted, ground-based, stationary and mobile, indoor and outdoor, but they are not always effective. The Capitol Police had cameras outside the Pelosi home, but they weren't monitored at break-in. Even when people are watching video for security purposes, often after about 20 minutes, it's very difficult for them to retain their attention. So much video, even when taken for security objectives, is not viewed. Video sensors are typically non-collaborative. Footage is available from many video sensors that are largely independent and do not collaborate with each other. There were some programs a number of years ago, such as the DARPA, VSAM, and VIVID programs, that looked at collaborative video technologies, where the content of one camera's imagery was used to cue another camera. But typically that is not the case. We typically have non-collaborative video sensors, where the cameras are independent and do not work together. That's a typical scenario for many video sensor collections. Automatically associating data across non-collaborative sensors presents significant technical challenges. The objectives of video links are to perform re-identification, to autonomously associate all instances of the same object across all video footage in a collection, across space, across time, and across sensor types and collection geometries, and to autonomously transform object locations to a common reference frame. This will provide a gestalt view of content with the ability to rapidly view object motion patterns in a unified world reference frame, understand motion patterns across space and time, and analyze patterns for anomalies and threats. Here, we show the concept pictorially. There are many different sensors that are available for different areas, such as rooftop sensors, pole-mounted sensors, indoor CCTV footage, drone footage. Within a given sensor footage, you can track the objects that are present, as we see in the upper right and the lower left. And then we can associate that data, re-identify those objects across the different camera feeds. An overview of the video link system would have inputs from different video sensors. There are two technical areas. One, re-identification, which would associate the same object across all camera footage. The output from that re-identification would be tracks of those objects in camera coordinates within each individual camera footage and across cameras. The second technical area is object geolocalization, to display all objects on a single map, where the output from all of the different footage would be shown on a single map. So video links will provide geolocated, time-stamped tracks of objects across open world video footage. Why is video links so difficult? Successful autonomous video re-ID requires research innovations in detection, finding all objects across scale, aspect, density, crowding, obscuration, sensors, matching, associating all instances of the same object within and across sensors, collection geometries, appearance variations, and geolocalization, to automatically transform object positions to a geo-coordinate system, often using inexact or unavailable sensor location and pose. The general vicinity is typically known. For video links, neither the query nor the gallery are available in advance. the object instance that's being looked for or a set or a library of objects being matched to just don't exist. This is open world where we're just looking at a set of video where there is no set of objects to be re-identified, and there's no object that's known a priori to perform re-identification against other objects. And the sensor, video, and object characteristics are not known a priori and can vary significantly across a collection. Video links will provide re-identification for objects in the open world setting across different video sensor types without any availability of annotated data from those sensors, across time, robust to changes in external appearance, on raw video footage without a priori detections of objects, and it will be applied to people, vehicles, and generic objects in the footage. We're looking for complete tracks, not merely retrieval, that would be generated entirely by automated processes, including both the queries and the gallery. There will be a unified presentation in a common coordinate reference frame, geolocalization. So video links will research and implement novel technologies to perform autonomous, open world, geolocalized re-ID. For the first technical area, re-identification, the input would be a collection of video imagery from a number of different sensors. It would be necessary to detect the objects and then track those objects within a single camera, across footage from different cameras, and across time. Re-identification will require a number of innovations, detecting all those objects across scale, orientation, pose, crowding, occlusion, noise, etc. Track all the objects within camera, retain that object in the presence of confusers, occlusions, disappearance, reappearance, jitter, across cameras, varying locations, geometries, conditions, including resolution, viewpoint, aspect, lighting, sensor, across time, varying attributes, temporary attributes such as clothing, accessories, face masks, imaging conditions. And the outputs would nominally be each video for each frame in each video, an anonymized ID for an object, along with the position and the extent of that object in the imagery. Some challenges for re-ID. There are different video sources, conditions, and collection geometries. There's ground-based, building, roof, pole-mounted, and aerial, stationary and mobile, outdoor and indoor, day and night, varying weather, temporally proximate and temporally distant. And the primary issues with the temporally distant are that those temporary attributes may change. Noise, artifacts, and corruption. Some examples of some noise are shown in one of these images, as well as some aspects of nighttime collections versus daytime collections. We're dealing with arbitrary collections with no a priori galleries of objects. There's no prior representative data from sensors that collected the video. This is just arbitrary video collections. Faces and license plates are predominantly unavailable. And we're looking for an end-to-end solution, video input and re-identified output. As I mentioned, the temporally distant case, that's where the temporary attributes often change. And we're looking for re-identification under these cases as well. Here we show the same person where there's significant external appearance variations throughout different footage. This will come primarily starting phase 2 as an objective of the Video Links program. The second technical area is object geolocalization. Once again, we have video imagery from a number of different sensors. And we have the output that we have from TA1, which are the object locations in the camera frame and the camera coordinates. And the objective is to geolocalize, determine where that object is in a common reference frame, in a world reference frame, both for instances where we have the pose of the sensor, as well as for instances where we do not have sensor pose. A number of innovations are required for TA2, with sensor pose being able to refine that mapping to provide accurate coordinates that are impervious to sensor pose errors. Without sensor pose, to be able to utilize auxiliary data such as maps, building layout, to determine object positions in a unified coordinate system. And the outputs would be object time-stamped geolocations, which would include an anonymized ID for the object, timestamp, and then an absolute coordinate for that object, such as KML, if you're looking at something that would be Google Earth compatible, or something along those lines. A number of challenges for geolocalization: to transform from image coordinates, which are different for each camera, to world coordinates. Provide a unified view for all objects independent of the camera that collected the imagery. To be able to geolocate with noisy or unavailable sensor pose when that general location is known. And to be able to estimate the location of those movers, the things which are moving in the imagery for objects that are non-planar. We're looking for autonomous back projection from the camera coordinates to the world coordinates. No person in the loop. And to be able to deal with non-planar content. Different levels of camera metadata and reference imagery may be available. The geolocalization will be evaluated both as a standalone module and also for the end-to-end re-ID system, where any errors in the camera frame detection location from TA1 may propagate. Some additional challenges: we are looking for autonomous operation in the open world that's not reliant on any faces or license plates. We're looking for exhaustive re-ID, not merely retrieval. Re-ID should work under occlusions, whether it's partial occlusion or significant occlusion. We're looking for re-ID for objects that are in groups in close proximity. And as we mentioned, for non-collaborative sensors, where operation would be autonomous at test time without prior information or training data from video sensors that obtain the imagery. The system should operate in general with data from new unseen video sensors and work across collection conditions: resolution, aspect, viewpoint, lighting, quality, etc. And in addition to working on specific objects that we know, such as people and vehicles, we are also looking to develop a capability for generic objects, where there's no prior information on the object to be re-identified. For this generic object re-ID, we're looking for this re-ID capability for generic objects where there's no knowledge of the specific object type to be re-identified at training time. This is looking for something which is a more generalized modeling approach beyond class-specific approaches. And we're looking for re-identified tracks of all foreground objects in the collection, where there's no prior information on what is an object, no prior information on what is foreground versus backgrounds. And the generic object re-ID capability should work for all objects the system is able to re-identify without size limits, whether they are large or whether they are small. So video would be input, and all objects which are in the foreground should be re-identified across the collection, with the output providing the object tracks and locations. Here we show pictorially the generic object re-ID. Again, the inputs are video imagery from a number of different video sensors. And then, again, we have the two TAs, re-ID and object geolocalization. But in this case, they're whatever objects are present in the foreground of the imagery. And the output will provide the object tracks in camera coordinates, as well as those object locations in geo coordinates. It's re-ID for all foreground objects in video without prior knowledge of object types present in the foreground. In this slide, some areas of relevant expertise are enumerated. They're also listed in the draft technical BAA that was released. And there are a number of other areas. We're looking for novel approaches to the video links problem, and all relevant expertise for your solution is what we're looking for. There are some areas that are out of scope of the video links program. Research of non-visible image or video modalities, such as audio or emissive infrared, is out of scope. Development of hardware or sensors is also out of scope. Video links will not be performing research on face recognition. Existing face recognition technologies may be employed, but there should be no expectation that recognizable faces will be present in the video. Research on license plate recognition is out of scope. Existing license plate recognition technologies may be employed, but there should be no expectation that recognizable license plates will be present in the video. Video links will not be considering video from space-based platforms, and also will not be looking at methods that require a human in the loop. Video links will be a 3-phase program with 2 18-month phases followed by a 12-month phase. In the first phase, the re-ID objectives for TA1 will focus on people where they are temporally proximate, meaning that those temporary attributes will primarily remain the same. We're looking within a collection type. So we talked earlier about different types of sensors, video sensors that would perform a collection. For example, we had rooftop mounted, and we had indoor CCTV, or we had an aerial drone. Each one of those is a separate collection type, and this would be re-identification within that collection type, but not across collection types for phase 1. And in phase 1, there will also be accurate timestamps. When it comes to geolocalization for phase 1, the camera pose will be provided, which will provide location and orientation. In phase 2, we will extend re-ID to not only work with people, but also with vehicles. Generic objects will also be an objective, but as you see, it's in small print. And that small print is because that objective will be functionality in phase 2, but in phase 3 is where that will be the primary focus for generic objects. Getting back to phase 2, when it comes to people, it will extend to cases where they are temporally distanced and those temporary attributes may change. And re-ID will be performed across collection types, such as between aerial collected imagery and ground-based imagery. And there will be more timestamp errors in the actual video. For geolocalization, camera location will be provided, but orientation of the camera will not be provided. In phase 3, as I mentioned, the re-identification will move to generic objects where specific milestones will be placed for performance on those generic objects. For vehicles, moving to temporally distanced cases where the conditions of the collection may change significantly, and across broader collection types. Geolocalization will be performed in cases where just the general vicinity of the camera is known, but the location and orientation are not. Here we list the metrics that we will be using for TA1 for the re-ID. The re-ID accuracy will be measured by the F1 metric, which is a measure of the true positives with penalization for mismatches and misses in the camera coordinate system. We'll be measuring processing time speed up, that autonomous re-ID versus manual re-ID. For geolocalization, we'll be looking at ground plane accuracy, which would be the position error in meters. And for both TA1 and TA2, there will be runtime constraints where they will need to run within a specific amount of time on the test server hardware, which is relative to the test video length. And that's really to ensure capacity for submissions. We're not looking really to limit the type of solutions that could be brought to the problem, but there will be certain limits on the total amount of time that can be used to process the video footage. For that TA1 ReID F1 metric, it's the ratio of the correctly identified detections over the average of the number of ground truth and system detections. And this metric encapsulates the true positives, the correct re-identification, and the false positives, those mismatches, and false negatives, those misses, in a single metric. This metric measures how often the correct object is correctly re-identified, with even penalties for false positives and false negatives. The reference listed on this slide provides a very good description of this metric. There will be milestones throughout the program for all of these metrics. For the TA1 ReID accuracy, they will progress through the phases and through the objectives for people when they're temporally proximate and temporally distanced, and vehicles from temporally proximate to temporally distanced, ultimately for generic object ReID. For the ReID speedup, we'll be looking at how quickly ReID can be performed by the systems relative to manual operator annotation, and where that will increase by an order of magnitude in each phase. And for geolocalization, again, we're looking for tighter, better geolocalization throughout the phases when full pose is sensor pose is provided, and then as that is relaxed, they will continue to have tighter bounds as we progress through the phases. And for the TA1 plus TA2 runtime, the overall runtime for the systems, that will be measured relative to the video that is used in the test set, where in phase 1, it will be allowed to run longer than the actual video runtime, and then ultimately in phase 3, it should run in the same amount of time as it actually takes to play that video. Test set conditions will also progress through the phases. For people, start with a certain number of distinct truth identities that need to be re-identified, and that will increase through the phases to have more subjects, more people in the collection, in the test collection. The number of potential confusers that are present in the imagery will also increase throughout the phases. And once those temporary attributes are allowed to change, as we're looking at temporally distanced data, there will be a minimum number of those attribute changes per person throughout the phases. The sensor collection types will increase throughout the phases, where we'll start with 3 different types of sensor collections in phase 1 and bring in more types throughout the phases. And vehicles, there will be increased throughout the phases once it starts being an objective in phase 2. For video sensor pose, we already mentioned that the amount of pose that is provided to the systems will be reduced as the phases progress. Data. There will be a requirement to have a privacy protection plan for any team that will use video data and or annotations in their research. Institutional Review Board, IARPA approval will be required for any collections with potential personally identifiable information, PII. All performer proposals that will utilize data for research and development, and that would be for development and or validation, must share that data, the video and annotations, program-wide every 6 months after the evaluation point where the data is first used. The T&E team will collect data for T&E purposes, but there should be no expectation of government-collected data sets for R&D. This shows an overview of the planned T&E structure. There will be T&E data collections where T&E will have absolute truth for which identity is the same throughout the collection. and the locations for each of those objects, whether they are people, vehicles, or generic objects. There will be two different data sets, a sequestered data set and a self-test data set. For the self-test data set, performers will be able to run their algorithms on their own hardware and submit their results to a T&E scoring server. T&E will have the truth for that data set and will post performance on a leaderboard that will be shared program-wide. There is also a sequestered data set where teams will submit their systems to T&E to run independently on T&E hardware on that sequestered data set, and those performance results will also be available program-wide. Here's a nominal schedule. There are two leaderboards, a self-test leaderboard and a sequestered leaderboard, data leaderboard. There will be monthly submissions required to these leaderboards, and performance results will be reported at a 6-month cadence throughout the program. As I mentioned earlier, data will need to be shared after each of these 6-month evaluation waypoints program-wide. For feedback, thoughts, and comments, please send email to the Video Links team email alias listed here. There's also additional information that's available at the Video Links website listed on this slide. The next presentation will be the contracts presentation.